Hello and welcome back to my base. Someone wanted to see an update on the current status, and it's been a while, so I managed to pretty much finish up HV or high voltage and start work on extreme voltage. And I've already been to the moon, gathered a bunch of supplies, which is really kind of boring actually. It's not all that thrilling, so I didn't really bother recording any of it. Um, there's not really too many changes here in the main area. The only change I think is really noticeable is this right here. What I did here is this chest here has a couple of conveyors attached to it to pull into this network of ducts that point into these um, hoppers, and so that allows it to basically what I can do. Let me see if I've got anything in a digger. This one here has some stuff in it. So all the stuff in here, I can just hold down the sneak button and then click on that, and it dumps it immediately into it, and then it pulls it into this network and drops them into the correct chest, kind of a poor man's chest controller or something like that you can do fairly easily in the game. Now you'll notice here that the hologram pop-up shows some sandstone in there, but we don't have any sandstone slots here, and so it ends up clogging up my network here. So that's what this little chest over here on the side is. Whenever I notice a clog like that, I can open that up, and then eventually it'll get dumped into here. So you can see it showed up here. And now these other items will start getting pulled out of here. These are not very high tier conveyor belts, so it'll take it a little while before they get pulled in. Other than that, there's not really been too much change. I'm slowly migrating stuff out of here and moving it somewhere else. And so this stuff in here is slowly getting moved out. I'm probably going to retire this area. I'm not really using the food as much anymore directly from here. I'm canning it, which I'll show you here in a second, which makes it into a much better food than these. So anyways, let's go back over here. Let's see. Oh yeah, you can see it's already pulled off 4 stacks of stuff. So now I can go on and do my own thing without having to worry about that anymore. Now, the next major area I've done is this bee processing or hive area. As you can see, I put down a lot of stone to keep it from producing the oddball flowers. I just have the flowers here in a line, so I don't get any of the weird poisonous ones, these stupid wither balloons mostly. You notice as when you hit them, you get wither. What I'll do is I'll collect them, and then I'll stack them up to kill butterflies, essentially, because the butterflies are kind of annoying. And also the bats that I get from warp. As you can see, all my bees are processing here. They come in through the hopper, and then since this is the first place that they can drop off, any new princess or drones get dropped into here, and then the excess goes through the restrictive pipe last, and then into this pipe down here, which then sends it down into this apiarist chest, which drops into a hopper straight into a trash can. So all the excess drones just get dumped right into the trash. And because this is an apiarist chest, the only thing that falls in there are drones. Any of the other outputs go into this obsidian chest, which then goes into this centrifuge here, which then processes it here. So here you can see the first stage of processing. These here don't have any further stages, so they just sit here. And anything that can be processed further goes through the tight filter, chest buffer, packager line, and then into here. So you can see I'm getting thaumium, platinum, copper, nickel, all kinds of good stuff coming out of that. Some of the other stuff I like getting for my bees, you can see there's some Salus mundus there. The blaze powder is really handy for a lot of stuff, and these right here are actually really good for making, for turning into coal dust for burning. Most of the other stuff, like the stone dust and the beeswax, I'll probably set up a line just to send it to the trash can, but I just haven't gotten around to it. Now the power for this line, it's actually HV power, but that's just mostly because I could, not necessarily because it's necessary. But as you can see, this power from this line is renewable energy that comes from this windmill up here. There's a quest to make them, so I made a couple of them. There's one over there too. The iron ones don't last all that long, so I've swapped out the iron ones for some energetic alloy ones, which last quite a bit longer. It's too bad that they have to be so high up. I actually kind of like the effect. I wish we could put them a little bit closer. As you can see, it's starting to... It's not putting out any energy right now because the batteries are all charged. So that's it for the beeline. Over here on the left, you can see my... I didn't realize this until after I was done, but it looks pretty much like a concentration camp. I was getting these random zombie attacks. I didn't know what it was about, and then I read up online. Villages can get what are called zombie sieges randomly. At midnight, there's a small percent chance for that to happen. And so if I was awake around midnight, eventually I would get one of these zombie sieges, and these zombies would come and try to attack the villagers I had up here. So I've added some fencing around it to try to protect it. This is actually tier 2, so it hurts you if you rub against it. So the funny thing is that I pushed it back, but now the zombies will spawn inside of the base. They ignore me because they're after the villagers, so they're inside the base trying to attack the villagers, and when I open the door, they run out, run up the stairs to try to attack them. I actually saw a zombie. Let me turn off the helicopter so you can hear me. It climbed up here like it knew what it was doing, and then it fell down. And I was like, that's one damn smart zombie. So at some point, I need to figure out a better answer to protecting the villagers. What I'm thinking about doing is just taking over a village out in the wild. As long as I'm not near it at night, there won't be any zombie sieges. It's only because this one is basically inside of my base chunks that the zombies will come. Now most of these guys are actually, I only brought back 3 of them, and the way the villager spawning / breeding works, if you add doors to a village, they'll start breeding, and so most of these are actually ones that it bred on its own when I was doing other stuff. And here's the king. I can buy music from him, I guess, as I up his tiers on his stuff, on his trades. But the main reason I wanted the villagers is to get more beekeeper villagers so I can get more apiaries to expand my apiaries over there. Because making apiaries by hand is a giant pain in the butt. So over to the bee section. This here is where I do the majority of my bee processing. These 3 stations right here. So as you can see right now, I'm working on demonic bees, trying to breed them up. One thing that makes it a lot easier are void frames. So here, let me see if I can throw down a void frame real quick. So the void frame, what that does actually is it kills the bee super fast, so that way you can get your reproduction cycle going much faster. I'm just going to throw these away because these are probably garbage anyhow. Takes about 20 seconds or so instead of the normal, minutes to hours. Once it does one tick, you'll see they'll see, there he goes. Now the queen is back behind here. Let's see if we can, yeah, so there she is. And that way you can breed them really fast and get the target bees that you want. One one nice thing is if you've got an effect from a bee that you like, so let me take a look here if I can make some space. I need that. So these drones, I've actually bred them to give the explorer effect, which gives experience points. So right now that it's active, you can see my experience bar. If you just watch it, it'll just bing. See, there it just went up. Now with the collector's jar, instead of throwing away your extra drones, you can actually dump them in a bee collector's jar, and they'll provide that effect. So with those, I can get now the effect twice as much. Now this is not really where I'm doing this at. What I have set up is these are Edenic drones that have the same effect, and I've got a whole bunch of them right here. So whenever I need to go AFK for a reason, like waiting for the EBF, I just sit up here and just get free experience points. You can see the bars jumping up pretty fast. With that, you can basically stockpile a ton of experience points. One other nice thing about those jars is you can use them for other effects too. So down here, I've made a new basement area to my tower, and this is where I've got some nodes under development, let's say. And these drones here, the empowering drones, what they do is they actually make your nodes stronger. So we go up here, we take a look, and you can see all these new aspects that are growing on these nodes. And that's all from these drones. Now, you can see I have the collector's jar here, but unfortunately they don't quite work right because the mod isn't made quite right. So it keeps putting the pollen in there instead of the extra drones. But at this point, it really doesn't matter. I've got these are, you know, in the hundreds of points, anyways, on the aspects I care about. Eventually, I'll be turning these nodes into Centavis nodes, energized nodes for doing machines. Now, there's also another bee, a Nexus bee, that'll repair the nodes. So you see, well, it's kind of hard to see here. Let's see it. Yeah, so all these nodes now are bright nodes. They're all bright. Normally when you move nodes around, you have a tendency of turning them pale or normal. So the Nexus nodes repairs them and makes them bright, and that actually doesn't really take very long. In my opinion, it's way overpowered, but it is what it is, so I took advantage of it, of course. So now these are all bright nodes, which means that they recharge extra fast, as well as being pretty low. Growing in size, they also recharge very quickly. I've got a little workstation here in case I need to build anything, but for right now, this is pretty much what it's going to be in here right now. So those 4 nodes there are to power my recharge stations here for my wands. So if my scepter needs a bit of juice or my wand, I can just take it and go boop, and ring, and it fills up. And I got 2 of them just in case. At some point, I'm going to get more items, but I've made my thaumium scepter, so that's a really good scepter that helps me do crafting and stuff like that at a really nice discount. There are no other really major changes inside the tower. There is some stuff outside though. So one thing that I added was this little thing here, which is a arcane spa, which is pretty nice for when you have warp effects that are getting really annoying. Like the nausea effect was the one that really drove me crazy, because it's pretty much a constant shimmering effect on your screen. It gets to the point where I was just getting nauseous in real life just watching it. So you can put the bath salts in here. Mix it. Right. I think I just messed that up. Apparently so. Alright, let's try that again. Okay. There it goes. So now you can see once I hit it, I get the warp word effects, and I don't have any warp effects for the next 30 minutes or so. The other thing that's been added is I've cleared this area back here for magical resources. The dying leaves here are really handy for certain aspects. The mortis aspect of death, which is handy for a lot of things. Then these magic leaves are another handy source instead of the silver wood. You can just chop the leaves down with a pair of shears, then you get a whole bunch of them at once. Here's my umbral rose I use for ink. And then over here is a bunch of Aurelia plants that I use for aurum, the little sun picture there. It's really rare out in the world to find it, and so this plant really helps a lot. I kind of overdid it and made a whole bunch, hence the whole line. So there's no really reason to make more than one. The one problem with them is it takes a whole moon cycle before they start, before they open up and start making these little petals on the ground. But once that happens, it comes pretty fast, so you can get quite a bit of them. This area here I was using to replicate my gardens from Pam's for some quests, and so that's why there's a whole bunch of mushrooms. I just left them. I haven't gotten around to getting rid of them. But yeah, any Pam's garden, if you click on it, you can pick it up, and then you can put it down again somewhere else, so you can farm them, so to speak. So if you put it down here, eventually it'll spread around. Alright, let's see, what else do we want to talk about? Oh yeah, so in order to make that thaumium embossed scepter, I had to increase my discount because this one right here wasn't high enough. So what I ended up having to do was to make these nanosuit boots of the Traveler and the nanosuit goggles of Revealing. So you can see there that discount is one higher, and this is 2 and this is 4. The reason I'm not wearing that outfit is because of this. Because these nanosuit boots of the Traveler are so fast that it's almost impossible to control. And the other thing is that they'll also climb on top of stuff, so it gets kind of annoying when you're trying to go somewhere and you're, jumping on top of stuff instead of stopping where you want, and just, even short areas, even with the sneaky down, it's pretty fast. So I basically have, I'm not using that right now, and not until I change the config. You can change the config in the game. Since I'm in a single player game, I'll just change the config to not use those, or to not make it quite so fast. Until that point, I'm going to go back to my bloodstained robes and stick with that. Now, I've talked about the Cetain setup before, but I'll just go over it one more time in case someone didn't see the last video. This is a forestry farm set up in manage mode for crops, and it's using the Pam's peanut seeds. And there's a super tank here. Ooh, it's out of water. Let's go fill it up with water real quick. So it uses the super tank to run the sprinklers. I really wish we could figure out what the hell causes that lag. As you can see, my base is still not set up right. I have to run all the way over here to get water. And there is actually a water source underneath it. I just haven't set it up right to supply water directly. Anyway, so the sprinklers take water and they give a slight boost with water to your production rate. But the real boost comes from using bone meal. So you can, I've got one of them set up here. So you can see now all of a sudden these are getting a lot faster. I normally only do one because that's more than fast enough, but just for fun we can go ahead and throw bone meal to all of them. It actually goes so fast that the forestry farm can't even really keep up with it. You can see just how much is lying around. Down here is my Cetain processing. So I get the seed oil and fish oil. Fish oil was what I started out with originally over here, with the fish catchers going into the pipes and over into here, and these pipes drop off the junk items here. Well, not necessarily junk. I mean, the diamonds are really handy. Emeralds and stuff are handy. For a while, the slime balls are handy because you can use those to make rubber. That falls into here, and the fluid extractor basically turns it. See, there it goes. Turns the fish into oil. Now here's where it gets interesting, because at my tier, all my processing has to be with fluids and cells. So I've got cells come out of this fluid tank here, and they come out from the bottom here into this chemical reactor. See, there's a fish oil cell. There's also a hopper here that has the sodium hydroxide that you also need here in order to make biodiesel. You need 6, that's why it's got 4 in there. There's also methanol. So there's this tank here. It has a couple of pumps to pump the methanol into the reactors. So as the reactor fills up with fish oil cells, they get pulled out, or sorry, they get turned into biodiesel. The biodiesel then falls into this hopper here, and gets shifted to the mixer. And the mixer then takes the biodiesel and mixes it with the tetranitrile and outputs it over here. And this is where the Cetain ends up. So when that happens, this is a storage tank for more Cetain, so it just is empty right now, so I need to do another cycle to make more. So the cells out of the mixer fall into this hopper. So that's what this line coming out of the bottom here is, a hopper line full of cells. You can see how it has some cells in there right now. Let's see, check. The hopper itself is empty, but the deal here had a cell. And then it comes back into the fluid tank here, ready for the next batch of fish. Now you'll notice it actually splits down there, and that's because on the other side over here is where we do our seed processing. So this is our farm. It gets power from here, or it doesn't. The gearbox is where the power comes in. It gets some supplies from here. Here's the water. This tank here is what I should be setting up somehow to go up above, so I can use it for the sprinklers. I just haven't bothered yet. And then here's a fertilizer barrel that feeds fertilizer into it to keep the thing going. Now, the output of it obviously is peanuts, which is fine. But as you can see, a peanut is not a seed, and the way this farm works, when it harvests, it actually removes the whole plant. And so we have to convert the peanut back into a seed, and that's what this little mini chest here is for. All it has is one slot, keeps it full. As you can see, there's a restrictive pipe, so it tends to keep this full before it sends it off to the fluid extractors, which are down there. There's 2 of them. And then it's crafting table and item transfer node. Transfer node with a world interaction upgrade converts the peanuts back into seeds. That's what it's doing here. Is it's looking around for seeds, and these speed upgrades here help it go fast enough to keep up with the rate of the farm. If these speed upgrades weren't in there, eventually this would decrease to the point where it wouldn't keep up with it, and then the farm would just run out of seeds essentially. So that goes into here, and this little storage area here with the slots keeps some extra seeds, and then the rest of it gets put into here. That way, as you can hear, the harvesting rate is really increased because of the fertilizing, and so that way it doesn't fall behind. So just a couple extra seeds there. Put this there, I guess. So anyways, that way there he goes. So that way the seeds keep up with the harvest rate. Now, just to go over some of the things that are happening here. Peanuts come out, get stored in this barrel, come out of here, go over here, get turned back into seeds. The rest of them come over here into these 2. Sometimes you get stuck in this spot like that. Into these 2 hoppers here, where they're turned into seed oil by these fluid extractors. So the 2 fluid extractors point into the same fluid tank here. Now you can't see it from because it's underneath it, but there's a you can barely see it right there. There is a line coming up with those empty cells. It puts them in here. Those empty cells get filled with seed oil and then sent over here. Now, just like this this hopper over here, this chest is what's stockpiling my sodium hydroxide. So the sodium hydroxide gets sent into the chemical reactor as well. So that keeps them up, keeps them full. I got some extra stuff over here. Keep that nice and full. And again, same thing. Seed oil cells, sodium hydroxide, methanol from here. When they get turned into biodiesel, they take that orange line and they basically dump into the same hopper as the fish cells right here, and they go into the mixer here. You can see it actually it's gone down a little bit because it's been making Cetain. Now I've got 36 buckets worth. So with this setup, you can make quite a bit of Cetain fairly fast. I'll show you the oil-based setup I have in a second. First, I wanted to go over some of the other stuff that's down here on the ground. So these are some nifty little panels that someone showed me online. It allows you to keep track of your status of your equipment. The one problem is that you have to use these range upgrades in order to get the signal basically from wherever it is on your turbine or your other machine all the way out over to here, which is kind of sucks, but it is what it is. As you can see, I've got some issues I need to go resolve. This bronze boiler here has one problem, that's reducing its efficiency, and then this large steel boiler has a problem that's reducing its efficiency as well. Let's see, is there anything else going on that's interesting here? Yeah, I don't think there's too much. Oh, the reason why these are negative is that these are actually power producing things, and so that's why it's a negative. And it's actually producing steam, so it would be double that in steam. So it's 800 steam per tick, and this one here is 1200, and this one's 1200. So it looks like this bronze boiler and the large steel pyro here have an issue. And one thing I did not do yet on this one is put a sensor on it. But one thing you can do is you can put a maintenance hatch and have a light or a siren turn on if there's a problem, but I haven't done that yet. So it looks like a pipe is loose, so we can go over here and do our maintenance. So we probably need a wrench. Hey, everything's running great now. Alright, so now let's go. Let's talk about this line over... Ah! Who put that hole there? That was me. So before we go and fix the other issues, let's talk about this line right here. So the power that I have coming out of these large turbines goes into these buffers and spread around. This is a Ender IO setup right now for doing various things like charging my electromagnet, which I find super handy. Allows me to do stuff like that, and it just comes back to me. Hey, look at that. But I also have this stuff here that I used for creating an Enderman farm, which I'll show you here in a sec. That's what this soul binder and all that other stuff was used for. And I collected a bunch of soul vials that I can use for other things if necessary. But the thing I wanted to show you here are these right here. This is kind of a mess, but it's actually a compressed cell line here, and then a electrolyzed water line here, and this here is a nitric acid line. So the way this, they're not fully 100% automated. So what I do is on this one, I take and I drop in empty cells here. So the empty cells get zipped across to here to the compressor, and then the compressor sends empty cells to the centrifuge. And when 5 of them collect, the centrifuge does a centrifuge cycle. The gas, which comes out as nitrogen, gets sent over to here. So you can see here I've got a few thousand barrels of nitrogen. The cells end up being oxygen, so the cells get sent over to the super tank here, where they're emptied, so they would come in through the top here and come out to the bottom. And then the empty cells are then dumped back into here. So eventually they'll all end up here, but the empties that are produced at this step, because you can see them here. You see those empties right there? They actually go shoot up. So the empties that get produced from the nitrogen get shot up and sent back into here. So actually, when I put in 64, I get more than 64 because it runs them through, several cycles. But anyways, they end up producing nitrogen over here and oxygen here. Now that's not the only gas that you need in early game, so I also set up this other line on the other side. Okay, we got some empties. So this line here is a water electrolysis line. So this line here is a water line that comes from this thirsty tank that's underneath here. You can see it right there. It supplies this boiler here as well as this medium tank. This medium tank here. So the water comes in through here, goes into this guy. So we can put a cells in here. They fall into the chest and immediately get, see them zooming by, zip, 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 zip. An electrolyzer here, which electrolyzes them, and once you get 3 of those, similar thing happens where they get electrolyzed, the oxygen cell goes this direction into the same line that the oxygen cell came from the compressors and dumped into the super tank here for oxygen. And then the hydrogen cells come out this way. You can see there's filters there to make sure the right things go the right direction. And they get dumped here into the super tank here. So that's how I got a lot of my hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen initially. One thing I did do was set up a little tiny, I had this old LV electrolyzer that's pretty much just sitting around doing nothing. So I set up a small line that's basically raw water and the cells. So this processes the water into hydrogen gas and oxygen cells. So the cells get pushed out this way. The gas gets pumped out that way. So the cells get pushed out into the tank. The tank then zips them back into the hopper and they fall back down again. And this just runs continuously. So this is a forever loop. It's only an LV, so it's fairly slow, so it hasn't even filled up the super tank yet. But it's another source of oxygen, something not quite as energy intense as other lines, because those are all MV lines over there. But it just runs continuously. So that's another source of oxygen that I have. The one thing that I have made recently that I really like is this nitrogen line here. So these fluid pipes here route oxygen into these 3 chemical reactors. So again, this is not fully automatic, so I have to manually put in ammonia cells. I think I had some here for demonstration purposes. So dump in the ammonia cells. They mix with the oxygen to make nitric oxide cells, which mixes with the oxygen again, and it comes over to here. Now, unfortunately, at this point, it needs an oxygen cell instead of oxygen because it has to mix it with water as well. So I leave some oxygen cells here in this hopper, and that'll keep this here full, and then the nitrogen dioxide can mix in with it whenever they get ready. And then out comes nitric acid, which is a million times easier than doing it manually, that's for sure. So actually running all those is probably overtaxing my grid here because I only have a by 4 output on this grid. So yeah, I can hear the machines are starting to undervolt. So the machines, they go into here. Sorry, the voltage comes out of the turbine into this by 16. The by 16 then goes into a by 4. So at most it can produce 4 amps and send it out this way. It's just not making it through the transformer here. So so it puts out 4 amps of HV. Only 1 amp can go through the transformer to make 4 amps of MV, and the 4 amps are more than used up by all these machines. So they're going to get backed up and complain about it, but that's fine. They'll eventually catch up. Let's see. Oh, so unfortunately, I lost my Steve's cart that was right here. You can still see the remains of the Steve cart set up. I am so sad. It's gone. What we think happens is when the sky is uncovered, the Steve cart just runs so long that eventually a lightning bolt hits it and blows it off the track, and then unless you happen to be there to pick it up, it just eventually despawns. So I've gotten away from using the Steve cart track anymore, and I'm using these these block breakers here. Why is it not showing it? Oh, I just read something. These block breakers here to do it instead. I just haven't gotten around to doing all of them, so I'll show you what happens. So when a block from these red lawns appear, they actually turn on the block breaker, and the block breaker cracks it, sticks it in the mini chest, which then eventually these conveyors pull it out into there. These conveyors are extras I had from the 10 coke ovens I've replaced now with some advanced coke ovens. I've got a bunch of extra conveyors, and I use it for that. It's part of the reason why I haven't really expanded it, because I don't want to have to deal with the conveyors. So that stockpiles the redstone that I can then crush up in my pulverizers and then run through a centrifuge to get basically unlimited amounts of iron and chrome and sulfur if I need it. Let's see, what else? So the wood farm on this side, I've expanded. We'll talk about you later, my precious. So the wood farm, I've actually expanded to a second wood farm, so I've got 2 of these going now. And I've got 4 coke ovens, just, I don't know why, just because, I guess. I don't really need 4, as you can see, only 1, maybe 2 are even kept busy at all. So anyways, the forestry farms, all their piping and stuff is down here. There's one thirsty tank that supplies this whole downstairs area with water. So you can see here it fills up the super tank that then gets spread around various spots. The water gets directly shunted into here, and then water also gets shunted down to the base of the other one, into the large steel boiler down there. And then there's fertilizer and dirt and other stuff. Sorry, just the fertilizer and dirt come into this one. Wood farms are kind of special. They actually use up dirt over time. The dirt has a chance of turning into sand, and so this here pulls out the sand and it pulls out the saplings and wood out of this farm hatch here. So the sand ends up here. The saplings go this way to be sent off to the far pyro over there, and then the wood gets sent off to the near pyro. As you can see, there's this restricted pipe here, so it preferentially sends it to the pyro, but any excess goes off to those 4 coke ovens that we saw before. So over here is the first pyro. This is the spruce wood pyro, and it takes and it sends the converts them to one of 3 different fluids based upon what I need at the time. So right now I believe it's making wood vinegar, I think anyway. No, creosote, sorry, it's making creosote. Actually it's maxed out on creosote, I need to shut that off. So we'll change that to wood vinegar real quick. So the creosote I'm using for the lubricant you can make out of it. Vinegar. Pyro needs to be configuration 7. How long that's been running like that? Probably quite a while, I would bet. Okay. Alright. Put these back over here. Alright. You know what the problem is going to be is that this is going to be backed up full of creosote. Alright, you know what? Pull this out. I love aluminum, large aluminum cells. That's 2 million creosote right there. So it's going to have to empty this output hatch. I can just finish draining the pipes. You got to be careful because sometimes you can get some, because of the ping-ponging back and forth, you get little bits left behind. Looks like we're good. Should start making, there goes the wood vinegar. Now the wood vinegar's coming out and it's going to start filling up that one. I believe there was a problem with this boiler. Another loose pipe, imagine that, huh? Alright. So that should, yeah, perfectly. Let's check the pyros. The pyros don't have any things on them. So I got, yeah, okay, so this has actually got 2 issues. Loose pipe, and that doesn't belong there. So anything that runs continuously like this, or the boilers and the turbines are going to tend to run into problems. This other pyro over here, it does not run continuously since it runs off biomass, and the number of saplings it can put through are not nearly as many, so it's probably doesn't have any problems. So the saplings that come in from the right, the saplings that are on the orange or the bronze pipe here, they come in and dump into these 3 machines. So they can first come into here, the compressor. So once 9, they get compressed. And they get sent off to the macerator, and the macerator sends it to the centrifuge, which makes it into chaff material here, then goes inside of here. And all that is just to make the fermented biomass. That's nothing else there. So the power for this the 2 forestry farms and everything else comes from these 2 turbines here. Now one unfortunate, running well. One unfortunate side effect is, for turbines to run the most efficiently, they have to have a perfect amount of steam to come into them. And so these 2 fluid regulators make sure that happens. They regulate the amount of steam. They make 600 millibar tick, no more, no less. Well, less if you don't have enough, but no more than that anyway. The problem is that they run off electricity, and so what I ended up having to do is take the power that comes off the turbines, and it goes to the battery buffer here, and there's another transformer here that splits it off to the two forestry farms, and then over to here to these guys, the two pyros. But then it also has the, see how it loops back up into this mess here. What had happened once is the two turbines basically both broke at the same time because it replaced them at the same time, so they were both gonna stop working at the same time at the end of their life cycle. And so it slowly had drained all the power throughout the whole system, and it became a giant pain in the butt to get the system running again because these fluid regulators need electricity in order to run. And so I had to go and steal batteries from all over the map to try to get the fluid regulators charged enough to run at the same time, you know, turning the pyros off and all that. It's a big giant mess. So that's one reason why I have those panels up top, so that way I can keep an eye on what's going on down here without it breaking, without me paying attention. So any excess power from those, any extra power, which is quite a bit actually, because these devices here really don't use all that much, goes into this big pack here, this 16 pack for the EBF and the vac freezer, which we'll talk about here in a sec. But one thing I like to do is when I go into a big pack like this, is I then put another a by 4 pack, because I normally use by 4 amp cables, and so I'll take it from the 16 to a 4. That way I don't need to worry about running 16 amp cables or 8 amp cables from here to here. Since this can pull twice the number of amps of the batteries, you'd have to have an 8 amp cable between these two if you were not going to touch them. These right here are blue alloy cables, which someone pointed out are really handy because they actually use a little bit less than silver cables, and they actually hold twice as much amps for the size. So a 2x blue alloy is a 4 amp cable. Let's see. What else? Okay, so since we're over here, we can go ahead and talk about over to the EBF. See, I was paranoid about how much power I could produce at a point, so I had a little hatchway to go down there and monitor it. So the power comes over to the EBF over here through a buffer, a local buffer that it has. It then goes to these transformers to MV hatches. So I've only got MV hatches on my EBF right now. It's just your standard EBF setup. I thought about putting another one next to it, but I just haven't gotten around to it. I'm thinking about just going ahead and actually separating it instead of sharing walls, because it gets to be pretty ugly with routing. One thing I did is I put an oxygen gas hatch and then a general hatch that I swap out nitrogen or hydrogen as necessary. And then I actually put a small input bus here in the middle for the goofy configurations, usually configuration 12 for, oh man, what is it? Certain things need configuration 12, I don't remember off the top of my head. And it's a pain in the butt to move everything else around, so I just leave that one there, and then I have this one for my large batches of, a lot of aluminum or steel mostly, and that kind of stuff. Now this machine here actually does have one of the maintenance covers, and it goes off to this little, through the red alloy wire here to the white lamp. And so if there's a problem with the EBF, this lamp will light up, because an EBF uses so much energy. If it's inefficient, it wastes a lot. So it's just, there's just nothing going on right now, so it's just sitting there doing nothing. I don't think I... There. A little wrought iron in there. Used to be... There. So anyway, you can see the EBF kicks on. Lights out, that means it's all good. When the light turns on, that means something's wrong. So some of the higher tier ingots will come out hot. You can see there's the steel ingots popping out from the wrought iron. So like titanium ingots or vibrant alloy, these alloy ingots here will come out hot, and then you have to put them into this vac freezer, and then there's so that's real handy to have right next to it. You can also use the vac freezer to increase your output of compressed air. I just I don't really see the need. So at some point, though, you need to use it to get liquid air that you then centrifuge to get some more of the esoteric um, items that you don't normally use very much of right now. Let's see. Oh, so the other thing over here is the rocket launch pad. So here's my little rocket launch pad, fuel loader. Here's my oxygen collector, compressor. These actually use very, very little energy. So you can actually just power them off of batteries and just turn them on and off when you need to. As you can see here, this has been an HV tier battery. It's probably been here a week. They're very low power. This is my basically staging area for taking stuff to the planets. I've already gone to the moon, like I said, so I've already got the Tier 2 rocket. I just haven't bothered to build it yet. So I've got my Tier 1 rocket here. I need to stick it in an arc furnace to get the materials back so I can build the Tier 2, but I'm just kind of like, I want to keep it. Actually, I did make a mistake. So one thing I did wrong is to make the Tier 2 rocket, you need meteoric iron. The problem is I turned all my iron to steel. So I'm going to have to go back to the moon anyways and grab a little bit more of the meteorites. So here those advanced coke ovens I do is overflow. So they go through that restrictive pipe. They come into here and overflow any extra coal. That then goes into here, gets compressed, and then output into here. So this compressed coal goes into the large steel boiler up here that runs the MV and LV areas on my base. So it keeps that full. I think that about covers the ground area. The one thing up here that's kind of nice that I made since the last time is this here is a couple of Project Red devices. This is a sequencer. So basically it goes around in a circle and it's set every 15 seconds. It goes from one quadrant to the next. So you'll see when it crosses that line there, it turns on that torch. And so basically once a minute it'll come across and hit this guy, which is a counter. And so this one here counts up to 360 minutes or 6 hours, and then it shuts off the light, and then I know that's time to do chores, you know, biodiesel, tree farms, pyrolyze, Steve's cart, which I don't have anymore because it disappeared. So since we went ahead and checked them already, I can just go ahead and reset it. So now the state is 0. So it'll be 6 hours from now. The lights will shut off. Let's see, the other big, these are just standard MV machines. I don't think there's anything really too interesting going on here. The other thing up here is the automated oil processing. So I've done a little bit of an oil setup before that I talked about with my trains and whatnot, but now I've actually got it set up so that the oil in here gets sent to a line down here that converts it into light fuel. So this is a light fuel on this side, and on the other side over here is heavy oil that gets converted into heavy fuel, and then down here the two are mixed with this advanced mixer to make diesel basically, or fuel. Every once in a while I'll take a bunch of it and dump it over in the mixer over by my biodiesel area to turn it into more Cetain, but as you can see I've got a lot, so I don't really need any. It's just honestly, part of the reason why I do this is just to get the hydrogen sulfide to make sulfuric acid, but it's just going continuously. I've got tons of the oil. I've got a few thousand buckets there and another 8,000 there, as well as a couple thousand in the oil wells that I haven't brought back yet. One neat thing is I made a recommendation to Dream to change how heavy sands are made or work, so that heavy sands, or oil sands, sorry, this oil sands here, you can now put into a centrifuge. If I can get them out of my deal. So you put them in a centrifuge now and you get 2 liters of heavy oil from it, which is super nice. So as you can see now I've got 500 plus buckets of heavy oil that I can use for making diesel. So now if you've seen oil sands, normally people just pass them by because they're not worth it. It's faster just to put down a pump station on an oil spout. But now you can use them to get heavy oil before you set up the large block, multi-block drill and drill down underneath for the underground oil. So that's pretty handy now. If you haven't set up your processing for that, I definitely recommend doing it. The next thing I want to talk about is a bit of a sad story. This is the new and improved clean room after the old one got blown up. So I don't know if you saw the pictures online, but this was originally a 7x7 clean room, and in the process of upgrading the interior from MV to HV, I forgot to replace one of these hulls, and so one of the hulls got HV voltage, which blew out the whole interior of the clean room. So all my machines, all my storage, and really the saddest part and the most painful part to replace was the filter casings up top. These are a pain in the ass to make, and so those blowing up really hurt a lot, and it took a long time. So what I decided to do after that was, of course, build it bigger. So instead of being a 5x5, it's now, instead of being a 7x7, it's now a 9x9. It's also taller, and so to prevent any future catastrophes, what I've done is each wall is now a specific voltage. So this is the HV wall. This is the other side of the HV wall. This is also HV. And if I wanted, when I want to do EV or whatever comes next, it's going to get its own damn wall. I'm not going to be removing any holes or any crap like that. So the interior, the other thing I did is the storage chest is now an obsidian chest that is blast proof. And so if through a stupid mistake, something happens, the obsidian chest and also the lubricant storage tank are going to be protected, because those are really the two big pain in the asses to replace. So all the work in progress and the final outputs get stored in here. These are a pretty simple setup. This is a chemical reactor that that does all of my board production. So we use iron chloride here. There, it gets sucked in. Board parts come from up here, circuit boards and copper foil, and the circuit boards end up down here. So you can see it's been making them for a while now. Similarly, we can make the chips by just taking and dropping in wafers up here. They get lasered, cut, and then dropped into the chest. So all these little parts here can get made. And here's where the actual assembler is. See, I was making some chips here. What was that? I don't even know. What are these used for? Ah, it's making the yellow ones. Alright, so it's missing, looks like coils. So throw some extra coils in here. Look, there it goes. So the thing about a clean room is it has to actually be clean. So you have to check and make sure. Uh-oh, platings are dented. So what that means is that the efficiency is only 90%, which means that platings are dented. I think it's a hammer thing. There. So now, if we hit it with the scanner, the scanner will tell us what the efficiency is. So now it's 94%. So what that means is there's a 6% chance that my circuit doesn't get made. So looks like they're all done anyways. I don't know. I don't even know if it made them or not. But if your efficiency is not 100%, there's a chance you might lose the circuits, the high-tier circuits that get made there. So that's one thing to keep an eye out. Make sure you keep an eye on it. I had it set up to monitor it and set on the light, but it got blown apart. So I just haven't remade it. I just keep an eye on it manually for right now. These parts right here get stored outside because they're not really any. I didn't want to waste the space inside for storing these. The other thing I did is, as you can see, I made it 2 levels. So there's a level up here. I could actually put a different voltage level on these walls, so I could have up to 4 different voltage levels in here if I wanted to. And these are actually warded glass, so they're basically impervious to anything. I could set off a TNT on here and it wouldn't touch them. The only thing that can get rid of them is my wand, and that makes it a nice little blast shield. In case anything goes bad, it doesn't blow up the whole clean room, only part of it. Yeah, that was a very sad time. I was very close to quitting the game. I will not afraid to admit that. So one more up here. This is the new HV floor. It's pretty much done at this point, so I don't know if we'll be adding any more machines to it. Not really anything too spectacular here. This is where I do my centrifuging for redstone to get mercury and all the other pyrite and ruby that comes out of it. It's had some other jobs, that's why there's other garbage in here. I've got 3 stills here for producing materials off of my pyros. So this one right here was making acetone. This one here is making ammonia, which you always need, so I just have basically running continuously to make ammonia for nitric acid. And this one here I was using to make lubricant from the creosote, so that creosote I can dump in here to make lubricant. This. So that line makes lubricant, and then here's just a normal chemical reactor. Acetic acid. So one of the side products for making, gosh, what is it? Tetranitromethane, I think. It's carbon monoxide. So I've just been converting it to acetic acid just to put it someplace. Oh, sorry, titanium tetrachloride, not acetic acid. That's incorrect. I should not have done that. Oh well. I can see I've got a bunch of it stockpiled up. So one of the side effects is the carbon monoxide. I'm turning that into acetic acid just to turn it into something semi-useful that I can store for later. So here's my HV storage area. I've got tanks of different various items. There's some method to the madness: sulfuric acid and epichlorohydrin, ammonia, etc. Here's epoxid, epichlorohydrin again, and phenol for making epoxid for circuit boards. So this stuff here, it's kind of a pain to move around, but there's ways to get it going. Let's see. So here's the ethanone that I use for tetranitromethane. So this here's a mixer that I use for mixing all kinds of good stuff. The gallium for gallium arsenide, lapotron, and energy and dust, that kind of stuff. When there's an input, actually I think that's an output tank. I think it's no, that's an input tank. There's a fluid that needs to be mixed, and I use this input tank here to mix it, and I put a temporary tank out here. Let's see. Oh, so here's my advanced assembly machine for building all kinds of good stuff. Because of the cleanroom incident, I've been trying to migrate to all obsidian chests, just because I don't want to have to deal with something blowing up again and losing a bunch of crap. That's not a real creeper, ignore that. That's a warp effect. Let's see. One little automated thing that I made here is a ore washer straight into a centrifuge. So this ore washer outputs products into here and then get shunted into the thermal centrifuge. So all of the tiny piles stay in because the translocator won't move stuff that it can't accept. So all the cleaned ores come into here and get centrifuged. Now the problem is this thing takes up a crap ton of power, and so I had to improve my power production up here. So I've got a big tank of diesel and 1, 2, 3, 4 combustion generators that feed into the battery buffer up here now. Even with all of those, it's still not quite enough power to run the centrifuge and the universal macerators, if they're macerating moon dust or moon rocks, they actually use a crap ton of power when they do that. And so I have to, that's why this has a chest and stuff above it. Normally they would just pull from what's ever in here. But because moon dust is so power hungry, I just dump it into one line here. This is my salt production right here. So this basically uses a, I wouldn't call it a trick, but it's a similar thing as the cells. This here is an auto crafting bench. The recipe makes salt from water, so the water bucket gets turned into salt. It gets a water bucket and then it turns it slowly into salt. And it fills up the buckets by sending the empty buckets over this way into this medium voltage tank, and they come out of the voltage tank back into here. So you can see it's starting to fill up again with some more salt. Let's see. Over here is an autoclave, just the HV version of it, and then an extruder. This one I actually don't use very much. I actually use the one downstairs on MV more. But it's here for certain items that need HV voltages. One thing I needed to do. So this is a new mod that's been added with the latest release called Random Things, and it has a spectre key that you can make that you can basically teleport to this dimension from anywhere. And it's a really basically just a one chunk size dimension that you can fill with whatever the hell you want. And so I store all my moon ores up here because it was really nice to just be in the moon and teleport up in here, dump my stuff, and then go back straight to the moon without having to worry about carrying everything. And so, of course, I said that this is a super exploit after I used it. So I've got all my moon ores up here, extra aluminum, titanium is somewhere around here. Yeah, there's more titanium ores, stuff like that. So let's go and get some moon rocks. So I was gonna process some moon rocks for later, because moon rocks are, at my tier anyway, the only source for tungsten that I have. So I actually got 2 of these. Now if I really cared, I could even fill up my other backpack. So I've got these backpacks, 2 of them. One of them's for Gregtech stuff, one of them's for normal junk. Then I've got the forestry backpacks, and then I have this backpack. This is my overflow backpack that just contains whatever kind of junk I get from anything, mostly monster drops. Alright, so that's about full. And now we can go back home. Right back where we left. Oh. Uh-oh. That's not good. There we go. I don't know what happened there. But yeah, it's a real handy little mod that allows you to have your own personal little dimension for storing stuff. I don't know if you can leave a chunk loader there and keep it loaded and run machines there. I haven't tried that, but I would imagine probably not. So what I was doing, just go ahead and do that. Get all the sneaky and just dump stuff in there. We'll have to come through and pull the moon dust out over time. Gives it something to do while we're doing other stuff. That's pretty much it for the HV area. I've got a couple of automated setups like the salt and the ore washer to the thermal centrifuge. This here's kind of nice. This using the super tank to feed these four generators. I have plenty of power up here. Oh, one thing, the output from the that doesn't look right. The output from these fermented biomass stills you actually get a little bit of fertilizer as output. So that's what this top orange line is, in case you were wondering. That goes into here for fertilizer for the forestry farms. The next thing is the new area. I'll show you my baby. This is what I went to the moon to build. My combustion engine. It's so pretty. It's so pretty. I love the color. So this is the one of the input hatches here with Cetain coming into it, and then over here it's got lubricant, and the oxygen provides a little bit of a boost in output. Now I've actually got a IV a dynamo hatch, if you remember the top floor up here. This is where I do my EV work, so this is an EV machine casing, but I actually made enough tungsten steel to make an IV dynamo hatch, so that way I can output what the hell was it, 8,000 volts or 8,000 EU. I immediately take it to a transformer and then put it in the battery buffer. So I've got a by 16 and a by 4, just like before, into a 4X aluminum cable. This is my one machine for EV. All it's done so far is make me batteries to stick in the machine ahead of it, so nothing else too impressive yet. But we're starting, so I'm hoping to get some stuff going there. One thing I want to do, like I was saying, the moon dust processing takes up a crap ton of energy. Basically, look at it. It uses 30 EU, so due to overclocking, that basically means that it's going to be using almost all the power at whatever tier it is. So at HV, it's going to be using basically 500 or so EU per tick. Basically, one full generator is being used up just for that macerator right now. So what I want to do is I want to put it basically far away from base in a different area. I built these this setup here with a low kinetic generator and a low kinetic water generator, and I'll be taking and putting that to an area. Let's see, get over there real quick. Off to my east. Ooh, down. I think it's over here. Yeah, so over here, I'm going to be setting up a little machine area over here where the water generator can run. Basically, right in here. And it'll be setting right there, producing power, and setting up a little line right here just to macerate and centrifuge the moon dust. And that way I can keep it out of my main system and just let this run as long as it can. That's pretty much it for the base tour. If you have any questions on the HV or EV setups, or if you really want to see the moon, let me know. It's boring as hell. It's nothing at all interesting on it. Just let me know in the Discord channel, and I can make a little mini video. Other than that, if you have any questions, let me know. I'll talk to you later, guys. So even this is without the really ridiculous shoes. Let me put those on again. Those are pretty funny. Just look at that health. Look at the food bar. Yeah, I don't even. It just seems. It's hard to even like get in position for anything. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention is, I made tin cans, and with the tin cans you can can your food, and it's actually a high. It's kind of like a higher tier food than the normal Pam's food, so you don't get any negative effects from the from the mod that makes it so you have to eat different foods. It escapes my head right now. But anyways, as you can see, just eating 14 cans of it gave me maximum saturation. And you can can basically anything. Right now I'm just going through my extra foods. But you can can, you know, rotten meat if you really wanted to, or whatever. But yeah, it's pretty nice food that you can use on the way to get the healing axe, which is OP as hell, but very nice to have. Other than that, I think that about covers everything. If you have any other questions, let me know. I can't think of anything else. Having those Edenic bees with the Explorer, with the Explorer aspect, makes it really easy to do the fortune enchants to get all your loot bags all enchanted up, by the way, so try and get that if you can. This is just too fast. It's annoying as heck. There. Oh no, my veins are on fire. I'm out of water. Anyways, if you have any questions, let me know. Take care and have a good week, guys.